Hey there, it's Tracy, and I'm super excited to be participating in the first ever Canada Day video hop. I'm joining a group of crafty Canadian YouTubers, and we're celebrating this special day by featuring Canadian craft products and shops. Our generous sponsors are giving away over $1,000 in prizes. When you finish watching my video, please leave a comment for your chance to win, and then click on the link in the description below for the next person on the hop. I'm creating an underwater scene using products from the fabulous Canadian-owned Studio Katya. I'm using the brand new dotted slimline dies that were part of the June release. I cut a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock slightly larger than the die, and I blended a background with tumbled glass, salty ocean, and faded jeans distress oxide inks. I blended the tumbled glass very lightly over my panel, leaving a bit of white space at the top. Then I went in with the salty ocean, which I wanted to be my primary color. The ink blending was done with domed blending foams, which I find easiest to use when I'm doing a large area. I've sped this part of the video up a lot, but I did spend a fair bit of time getting the blending done just the way I wanted. I find ink blending so relaxing, especially with Distress Oxide inks. I used underwater sun rays stencil from Studio Katya to create the sun rays coming into the water. Then I used some pixie spray to secure my stencil for blending. I sprayed a generous amount on the back of the stencil and then laid it on my project. It sticks all over with a temporary adhesive. You'll notice I still tape my top two corners because you can never be too careful. When it comes to stenciling, I use my Studio Katya blending brushes because I find it allows for a softer color application. I used tumbled glass and stenciled down as far as I could on my card, and then I went lighter near the bottom so I wouldn't leave an obvious line. I removed the stencil, and despite my efforts, there was still a bit of a line where the stencil ended, so I just used my Salty Ocean foam blender to smooth out the marks. To make some water bubbles, I grabbed my spray box. It's actually a large priority mail box that I keep under my desk to use when I spray or flick in my studio. I mixed a little acrylic paint with some water on top of an acrylic block, and then using two small paint brushes, I tapped the paint-water mixture over the panel to create tiny bubbles. Once it was dry, I flicked some water droplets with a very tiny paintbrush, and the two of them together is a really fun effect. Once I finished the panel, I die cut it with the dotted slimline dies. I used two stamp sets from Studio Katya, Under the Sea, and Jossum. I stamped off a bunch of images from both sets using my MISTI, and I made two identical panels. Now, I color very slowly, so I did all of my coloring off camera, and I die cut the images with the coordinating dies. From the images that I stamped, these are the ones that I chose to use: the shark, the jellyfish, the cute squid, some seaweed, coral, of course the surfboard, and a few rocks. I'll leave a link to the colors that I used for coloring in my description below. With all the images cut out, I laid them on the background, and I decided where I wanted everything to go. This is a great way to determine how you want to lay out your images on a background before you actually stick them down. There's one thing with the new slimline style of cards, that we now have a lot of space to fill in, and so it's determining how much is too much. Before making it permanent, I created a sentiment using the Jossum stamp set that I white embossed onto the background. I preheated my heat tool really well, and I moved fast because Bristol Smooth warps really fast. I still had a little bit of warping, but I managed to tape it down flat to my card base. I primarily used tape runner to attach the rest of the images, but I did use liquid glue for the rocks. I did that because I had a lot of layers down there and I didn't want anything to fall off. I added some Studio Katya prismatic sky pearls for a finishing touch, and I decided to call it done. Now, for your chance to win a prize from a total of 13 shops and 2 Canadian papercraft magazines that have generously sponsored today's event, please like, leave a comment, and consider subscribing to my channel. The more you comment, the higher your chances are of winning. Please indicate whether you're in Canada or elsewhere, as a few of the prizes are restricted to Canadian addresses only. All of the giveaway details are on Emily's blog, which you can find in my description below. The link to the next video in the hop is also in the description below, so happy hopping!